In a large, beautiful house on the edge of the city, a wealthy family lived with all the comforts money could buy. The father, a successful businessman, spent most of his time in meetings and travel, ensuring his company stayed at the top. The mother had passed away years ago, leaving behind her only son, who was blind from birth. The boy was intelligent and sensitive, but he lived in a world that he could not see, relying on his other senses to experience life. While he had many toys and books, he often felt lonely. The house was filled with servants, but no one truly connected with him in a way that mattered. One day, a new maid arrived. She was quiet and polite, with a gentle way of speaking that immediately put the young boy at ease. She had a warm smile and a natural curiosity about people, which made her different from the other staff who simply followed orders. She noticed the boy sitting alone in the music room, his fingers lightly brushing the keys of a piano. He was trying to understand the instrument by touch and sound. Most people ignored him, thinking he could never truly play, but she felt something different. The maid had grown up in a small village where she had learned to play the piano by listening carefully and practicing in secret. Music was her way of expressing emotions that words could not describe. Seeing the boy's interest sparked something inside her. She wanted to help him, even if it meant taking a risk. She could imagine how happy he would be if he could play real music, if he could feel the power of creating something beautiful with his own hands. Every day, she found small ways to spend time with him. Sometimes she would bring him into the kitchen while she cooked, letting him feel the rhythm of the utensils and the sounds of chopping and stirring. Other times, she would read to him in the quiet corners of the house, letting him imagine worlds beyond the walls. But she could not stop thinking about the piano. She knew he had a natural curiosity and an ear for sound, and she felt he could go far if someone guided him. The boy, for his part, noticed her attention. He had been used to people who either pitied him or ignored him, but she treated him like any other person, talking to him as though he could understand everything, which, in a way, he did. Slowly, he began to trust her, feeling comfortable around her in a way he did not with the other staff. There was a gentle excitement whenever she was near, a quiet joy that filled the music room when they shared moments together. One evening, when the house was calm and most of the staff had gone to their rooms, the maid found herself sitting beside the boy at the piano. The soft glow of the lamps filled the room with warmth, and she could hear the faint sound of the city outside. She asked him if he wanted to try something new, and though he hesitated, curiosity overcame him. He reached out to the keys with his small hands, guided by the maid's gentle instructions. At first, it was simple notes, one after another. The boy struggled to coordinate his fingers, but the maid encouraged him patiently. She told him that mistakes were nothing to fear, that music was not about perfection but about feeling. Slowly, he began to understand. He felt the vibration of the keys, the way different sounds came from different positions. His face lit up with wonder, a smile breaking through the usual calm expression he wore. The maid smiled too, feeling a connection she had never expected to have. Days turned into weeks, and these secret moments at the piano became their special time. The boy's confidence grew, and with it, a new sense of independence. He started exploring melodies on his own, humming as he pressed keys. The maid would guide him, correcting small mistakes, but mostly letting him discover the joy of creating music. She never spoke of the father or the risks, though she knew that if anyone discovered her lessons, she could be dismissed. The father, busy with his business, noticed changes in his son. The boy seemed happier, more alive, and there was a new light in his voice when he spoke. But he did not know the cause. He assumed the house was simply more comfortable for the boy, that he had grown used to the wealth and attention surrounding him. He did not imagine that a maid, quietly and secretly, had become a teacher and a friend, opening a door to a new world for his son. The maid, aware of the delicate balance she was maintaining, made sure each lesson was short and meaningful. She wanted to give the boy enough to keep his interest, but not so much that anyone would notice a sudden change in his abilities. She also paid attention to his moods and feelings, adjusting the lessons to suit him. If he was tired or frustrated, they would pause. If he was curious and excited, they would explore more complex pieces. She treated him as a person, not a task, and that made all the difference. One evening, the boy asked a simple question, in his innocent way, that surprised the maid. He asked if he would ever be able to play music that people could hear and appreciate. He spoke as though it was a distant dream, almost impossible. The maid hesitated but then answered honestly. She told him that if he kept practicing and believed in himself, there was no reason he could not. She described the beauty of sharing music, how it could move people, and how it could make someone feel emotions they could not put into words. The boy listened carefully, his fingers resting on the keys as though absorbing every word. The bond between the maid and the boy grew stronger with each lesson. They laughed at mistakes, celebrated small successes, and shared stories about life and dreams. For the boy, it was a revelation. Someone cared about him, not because he was blind or rich, but because he was capable of learning and creating something wonderful. For the maid, it was a fulfillment she had never experienced before, a chance to make a real difference in someone's life. The house, though large and luxurious, felt warmer with their secret. Music began to fill the quiet corners, even if no one else noticed. The boy's laughter echoed softly in the hallways when he played a piece correctly, and the maid felt a sense of pride that could not be measured by any salary or reward. She realized that this secret, this small act of sharing her talent, was changing both of their lives in ways that no one could see. Outside, the city moved on, unaware of the quiet transformation happening inside the grand house. People passed by, noticing wealth and status, but they did not see the bond between a blind boy and a kind maid, or the joy that music could bring. Inside, the piano became a bridge, a way for the boy to connect with the world and for the maid to express her heart. Weeks passed, and the boy's skill improved steadily. He could now play simple songs entirely by himself, with the maid only offering gentle guidance. His confidence was growing, and he began to believe in his own abilities. The maid, proud but cautious, kept encouraging him to explore more, always keeping the lessons a secret from the father and the rest of the household. She wanted the boy to shine without anyone interfering with the purity of their bond. One quiet night, after a long day of practice, the boy spoke softly, almost to himself. He said that he felt something inside him he had never felt before. Freedom, joy, and a sense of achievement. The maid smiled, her heart full, knowing that these secret lessons were more than just about music. They were about giving the boy a chance to experience life in a way that had been denied to him. The first part of their journey had begun, a story of patience, courage, and the quiet power of kindness. The maid knew that challenges might come, that the father might discover their secret one day, but for now, they shared something magical. Music had become a language between them, a bond that could not be broken by sight or wealth. And in the heart of that grand house, a blind boy was beginning to see the world in a way no one could take away from him. After those first secret lessons, the bond between the maid and the boy became even stronger. Each evening, after the house had quieted and the servants had returned to their rooms, they would meet in the music room. The boy eagerly approached the piano, his hands reaching for the keys as if drawn by an invisible force. The maid always sat beside him, guiding his fingers gently and softly explaining the sounds he created. It was no longer just about learning notes. It was about discovering the emotions behind each melody. The boy's curiosity grew every day. He asked countless questions about music, about how people felt when they heard certain sounds, and about why different keys produced different feelings. The maid answered each question patiently, knowing that her guidance was shaping not only his skill but also his understanding of the world in a way that he could experience without sight. She explained that music could express happiness, sadness, excitement, or calm, and encouraged him to experiment with the feelings he wanted to convey. At first, the boy could only play very simple tunes. Sometimes his hands would stumble, hitting wrong notes or pressing keys too hard. The maid never criticized him. Instead, she laughed softly with him, letting him feel that mistakes were part of learning. This encouragement made the boy more confident and willing to try new things. He began to understand the piano not just as a set of keys, but as a friend that responded to his touch and creativity. One night, As the city outside slept under a blanket of darkness, the boy sat at the piano and hesitated before starting a new melody. The maid asked him what he felt, and he described a story he imagined. A story of a boy walking through a forest, hearing the birds, feeling the wind on his face, and hearing the leaves rustle. The maid guided his hands along the keys, showing him how to translate these feelings into music. Slowly, a soft, flowing tune emerged, delicate and expressive. The boy listened to the sound, amazed that he could create such beauty with his own hands. The maid began introducing slightly more complex pieces, still keeping them simple enough for him to follow. She taught him about rhythm, the importance of timing, and how to play notes smoothly to create a flowing sound. The boy responded with excitement, always eager to practice and learn more. Every day, he seemed to discover something new, and his world expanded beyond the limitations of his blindness. Music became his window to experiences he could never see, a way to touch the emotions of life itself. While the boy's skill was growing, the maid also focused on building trust and patience. She knew that learning was not just about practicing. It was about feeling safe to explore, to make mistakes, and to try again. They talked about life, about dreams, and about the joy of small victories. The boy began to open up more, sharing his thoughts and emotions freely, and the maid listened with care. She became not just a teacher, but a friend, a guide, and a source of warmth in his otherwise lonely life. The father, still unaware of these secret lessons, noticed subtle changes in his son. He was calmer, more cheerful, and seemed to have a quiet confidence that he had not seen before. The boy hummed tunes while playing with toys or exploring the house, and sometimes he even tapped rhythms with his hands on furniture. The father thought perhaps it was just a phase, a fleeting moment of curiosity, but he could not ignore the spark in his son's voice and laughter. Little did he know, the maid was the reason behind this transformation. The maid carefully planned each session. She made sure no one would walk in unexpectedly. She would check the house, listen at doors, and even adjust their practice times to ensure privacy. Despite the secrecy, she never let the boy feel anxious or cautious. Instead, she made every lesson feel like an adventure, a secret journey into a world of sound and expression. They laughed together, celebrated small achievements, and found joy in every note played correctly. Sometimes the boy would experiment on his own, pressing keys randomly or trying to hum along with his hands. The maid encouraged this creativity, reminding him that music was about feeling, not just following instructions. She described how composers often created their own emotions and stories through melodies, and she suggested he try doing the same. The boy's imagination soared, and he began composing little tunes inspired by what he felt each day. His face would light up with excitement, proud of the music he had made entirely on his own. The maid also taught the boy to listen carefully, to notice the subtle differences in pitch and tone. She would play short melodies and ask him to repeat them, guiding him to understand how sound could tell a story. The boy's ear became sharper, and his fingers more nimble. He was learning to trust himself, to believe that even without sight, he could create something powerful and moving. Each session brought a new layer of understanding, a new level of confidence. As the weeks passed, the boy's skills began to draw attention, even if no one else in the house fully understood it. He would hum melodies during meals or while walking through hallways, and the maid noticed his growing pride. She knew that one day he would be ready to share his music with the world. But for now, the secrecy made the lessons more special. The boy felt safe to explore and grow, and the maid felt fulfillment in nurturing this hidden talent. The relationship between them was no longer just about teacher and student. They became companions, united by a shared love of music and understanding. The maid learned about the boy's personality, his dreams, and his fears. In turn, the boy learned to trust, to express himself, and to feel a connection with someone who believed in him completely. This bond was quiet, private, but incredibly strong. It was a safe space where both could be themselves without judgment. One evening, as the boy struggled with a difficult passage, he became frustrated and wanted to give up. The maid placed her hand gently over his, feeling the tension, and reminded him that progress was not always easy. She told him stories of famous musicians who faced challenges and continued to work hard, emphasizing patience and perseverance. Her words calmed him, and slowly he tried again. With her encouragement, he played the passage correctly, his face lighting up with pride and joy. The maid smiled, happy to see his determination paying off. The lessons became a rhythm of life, a comforting constant in the ever-changing household. The boy started looking forward to them, counting the hours until evening, while the maid cherished these moments as her own special escape from routine chores. They shared small celebrations when a piece was mastered or a new melody discovered, and even the smallest successes became victories worth cherishing. Their secret world of music grew richer with each passing day. Outside, the city moved on, oblivious to the quiet transformation taking place within the house. The boy, blind but perceptive, was beginning to experience the world in a new way. He felt emotions through music, imagined landscapes, and discovered creativity he had never known he possessed. The maid, patient and kind, had opened a door to a world that no one else in the house could offer. They both knew that these secret lessons were more than just training. They were life-changing moments, shaping confidence, courage, and imagination. Even with the joy they shared, the maid remained cautious. She understood the delicate balance of secrecy, realizing that discovery could come at any moment. But she also knew that the value of these lessons far outweighed any risk. The boy's laughter, his growing skill, and the spark of life she saw in him were worth every precaution. She hoped that someday, the father would recognize the importance of what they were doing and appreciate the impact it had on his son. As part 2 of their journey concluded, the boy had grown more confident, his fingers dancing across the keys with increasing ease. He could now play small songs from memory and improvise simple melodies. The maid had nurtured his curiosity, patience, and creativity, laying a foundation for something extraordinary. Their secret lessons had transformed a lonely, blind boy into a young musician discovering the power of his own abilities. And in that quiet, private world, a bond of trust, friendship, and shared passion for music had formed, promising even greater wonders in the chapters yet to come. As the weeks turned into months, the boy's skill at the piano grew faster than anyone in the house could imagine. Every evening, he and the maid would sit together, exploring new melodies and experimenting with sounds. The music room became a sanctuary, a place where he could express himself freely, and the maid could guide him without interference. She noticed that he had a natural talent for picking up tunes by ear, and sometimes he would play entire pieces after hearing them only once on the radio or on a recording. The maid realized that the boy was ready to move beyond simple lessons. She started teaching him how to create his own melodies, encouraging him to feel the story behind each note. Sometimes she would describe a scene or an emotion, and he would translate it into music. A simple tale of a rainy day or a gentle breeze became intricate arrangements of sound under his fingertips. The boy was amazed by his own abilities, and each small success gave him more confidence and pride. It was during these sessions that the maid noticed something extraordinary. The boy began to develop his own style, adding flourishes and rhythms that were unique to him. He didn't just play notes, he told stories. His music expressed joy, wonder, and even sadness, as though he were communicating feelings he had never spoken aloud. The maid encouraged him to explore further, reminding him that music was a language that could connect hearts, even without sight or words. Meanwhile, the father started observing subtle changes in his son. The boy's mood was lighter, his laughter more frequent, and there was a spark in his voice that had not been there before. He seemed to carry himself differently, with a new sense of confidence and purpose. The father could not understand the source of this transformation. He assumed that the boy was simply growing and adapting to the world around him, but in reality, it was the result of the maid's patient guidance and secret lessons. One evening, the maid asked the boy to try something different. She handed him a small sheet of music, carefully written in Braille, and encouraged him to play it by feeling the raised dots with his fingers. At first, he struggled to read and play at the same time, but she guided him patiently. Slowly, he began to understand how to translate the patterns into sound. The moment he played the first piece correctly, his face lit up with pride and amazement. He could feel the story in the music and knew that he had accomplished something remarkable. As the boy's confidence grew, so did his curiosity. He began to ask questions about famous composers, about how music had evolved, and about how people in different cultures expressed emotions through sound. The maid shared stories from her own experiences and lessons she had learned over the years. They talked about legendary musicians, about struggles and triumphs, and about the power of persistence. Each conversation deepened the boy's understanding, making him not just a player of notes but a thoughtful musician. The maid also introduced the boy to improvisation. She would play a few notes and ask him to continue the melody in his own way. At first, he hesitated, unsure of how to create something entirely new. But with encouragement, he began experimenting, adding rhythms and harmonies that surprised even her. The room would fill with music that was unpredictable and lively, full of emotion and creativity. The boy discovered a sense of freedom, realizing that music was not just about following rules, but about expressing his own imagination. Despite their progress, the maid remained cautious. She knew that the father's attention could shift at any moment, and the discovery of their secret lessons might not be received well. She took care to end sessions quietly, making sure the boy left the piano as if nothing had happened. She also reminded him to keep their lessons private, not out of shame but to protect the trust and freedom they had built. The boy understood, and they shared a silent agreement that their music was a special secret, a private treasure. The boy's talent soon became noticeable even without formal performance. He would hum or tap melodies while walking through the house, and sometimes he would recreate songs he had only heard once. The maid marveled at how quickly he absorbed new information and how naturally he expressed it. She knew that with the right guidance, he could achieve something extraordinary, and she felt proud to play a part in his growth. One day, the boy asked the maid why she was so patient with him, why she spent her time teaching and guiding him when no one else did. The maid smiled softly and told him that everyone had something special to share, and sometimes, all a person needed was someone who believed in them. She explained that his curiosity, determination, and joy in music inspired her, and that teaching him was a gift she was grateful to receive. The boy listened quietly, feeling a warmth and connection that went beyond words. The father, still unaware of the secret lessons, began to notice that the boy's reactions to music were different. He seemed more attuned, more responsive, and more expressive. Sometimes he would tap his fingers to the rhythm, smile at certain melodies, or hum along instinctively. The father was intrigued but could not pinpoint the reason. He did not suspect the maid, who continued to work quietly and without drawing attention to herself. Her careful planning ensured that their secret remained safe. As the boy became more skilled, he began experimenting with combining melodies he had learned into longer, more complex pieces. The maid guided him through the process, showing him how to link ideas and develop themes. The boy's compositions started to tell stories, each note carefully chosen to convey emotion. He began to understand that music was more than just sound. It was communication, a way to share feelings that could not be spoken. During these months, the boy's personality also flourished. He became more confident in expressing himself, more willing to try new things, and more eager to explore the world around him. Music had become a bridge, connecting him to emotions, ideas, and experiences he had never known. The maid watched with pride as he developed both skill and character, realizing that their secret lessons were shaping him in profound ways. One evening, the boy attempted a challenging piece entirely on his own. The maid sat nearby, offering guidance only when necessary. As he played, she listened with a mixture of pride and amazement. The boy's fingers moved with increasing confidence, producing music that was expressive and moving. When the piece ended, he looked up at her with wide eyes, thrilled by what he had accomplished. The maid smiled and praised him, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment in witnessing his growth. The boy began to speak more about the feelings his music evoked. He described the joy of a bright sunny day, the calm of a quiet night, and even the sadness of a rainy afternoon. The maid encouraged him to explore these emotions through music, helping him understand that every experience could become a melody. The boy's imagination expanded, and his compositions became more nuanced and expressive, reflecting the depth of his thoughts and feelings. Despite their progress, the maid remained mindful of the household. She continued to keep the lessons secret, careful not to attract attention. She also made sure that the boy balanced his musical exploration with other activities, encouraging reading, conversation, and movement. She wanted him to grow holistically, not just as a musician. Their lessons became a blend of skill, creativity, and emotional intelligence, preparing the boy for challenges beyond the piano. The bond between the maid and the boy continued to deepen. They shared laughter, stories, and quiet moments of reflection. The boy trusted her completely, and she cherished the connection they had built. Music was no longer just a lesson. It was a shared journey, a private world where both could explore, express, and grow together. The maid knew that this bond was rare and precious, and she protected it with care. As part 3 came to a close, the boy had transformed from a curious, shy child into a confident young musician with a growing sense of creativity and emotional awareness. The maid had guided him with patience, kindness, and wisdom, nurturing a talent that was ready to shine. The secret lessons had created a world of discovery, joy, and connection, laying the foundation for even greater achievements in the future. The house, once quiet and ordinary, now echoed with the promise of music and the beginnings of a remarkable journey. As the boy's musical skills continued to grow, the father began noticing more and more changes in him. It started with small observations. The boy's laughter was more frequent. His curiosity seemed endless, and he carried himself with a confidence that had been absent before. The father had always loved his son deeply, but he had been so busy with work and running his empire that he had not realized how isolated the boy had been. These changes puzzled him, and he began to wonder what was causing this new light in his son's life. The maid, aware of the father's growing attention, remained careful and cautious. She continued their secret lessons, always ensuring that no one could walk in unexpectedly. She had built a rhythm with the boy, knowing exactly when and how to guide him, and they never deviated from it. But the father's curiosity started to worry her. He had begun asking questions about what the boy was doing, why he hummed tunes, and why he seemed so happy in moments when he had previously been quiet and reserved. The father's observations became more detailed. He would sometimes listen outside the music room door, trying to hear what his son was doing. Often, he would hear soft music, faint melodies that he couldn't fully distinguish. The boy's hands moved confidently across the keys, and his humming blended with the sounds of the piano. The father was intrigued but still unsure who or what was behind this transformation. He could not imagine that a maid, quietly doing her duties during the day, could be the reason for this sudden development. Inside the music room, the maid continued her work patiently. She had noticed the father's occasional glances and had taken precautions to keep their lessons hidden. She taught the boy about rhythm, about expressing emotions, and about improvisation. She encouraged him to play freely, to make mistakes, and to explore music with his heart, not just his fingers. The boy's talent blossomed under her guidance, and he was now able to play pieces that would have seemed impossible only months ago. The father began to see the boy not just as his son but as a young musician. He started imagining what it would be like if his son could play for an audience, if his talent could be shared with others. He wondered about the possibilities and felt a mixture of pride and curiosity. He had never expected that his son, blind from birth, could develop such a deep understanding and passion for music. The father's admiration grew, but so did his desire to find out who had guided him. Meanwhile, the boy's confidence in his abilities was at an all-time high. He could now play longer compositions and even attempt small improvisations. The maid encouraged this creativity, reminding him that music was a way to express thoughts and emotions that words could not. She also asked him to describe the feelings he wanted to communicate through music. The boy would close his eyes, imagine a scene, and then let his fingers translate that scene into sound. Each melody told a story, and the maid would listen with pride, amazed at his talent and imagination. Despite their progress, tension began to grow. The father's curiosity was becoming more noticeable, and the maid worried that discovery could come at any moment. She decided to prepare the boy, teaching him how to respond carefully if questioned. She explained that their lessons were special and private, and that for now secrecy was necessary. The boy understood, though he felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness at the idea that someone might soon discover their secret. One evening, the father approached the music room just as the boy was finishing a particularly difficult piece. He stopped outside the door, listening intently. The music was beautiful, expressive, and full of life. For the first time, he fully realized the depth of his son's talent. He also realized that someone must have been guiding him, teaching him how to play and express himself through music. The father felt a mix of emotions: pride in his son, curiosity about the teacher, and a sense of awe at the transformation he was witnessing. Inside the room, the boy had finished playing and turned to the maid with a smile. She praised him warmly, telling him how well he had done. The boy felt proud but also a little nervous, sensing that the father had been listening. The maid reassured him, telling him to focus on his progress and not to worry about others. She reminded him that music was about joy, expression, and growth, not about approval or judgment. The boy nodded, understanding the importance of keeping their lessons private while still celebrating his achievements. The father, still standing outside the door, decided to speak with the maid directly. He entered the room quietly, and the boy looked up in surprise. The father's eyes were wide with curiosity, and he asked the maid how long she had been teaching his son. The maid hesitated for a moment, knowing that honesty was the best approach. She explained that she had noticed the boy's interest in music and had taken the opportunity to teach him quietly, out of care and a desire to help him discover his talent. She spoke with sincerity, expressing that her only goal was to nurture the boy's abilities and bring joy into his life. The father was initially shocked by the revelation. He could hardly believe that a maid, someone he had only known as a caretaker of the household, had guided his son in such a remarkable way. But as he looked at his son, who was smiling proudly, and remembered the transformation he had witnessed over the past months, he began to understand. He realized that the maid's dedication, patience, and skill had been instrumental in helping his son grow not only as a musician, but also as a confident, expressive individual. Over the next few days, the father watched the interactions between the boy and the maid more closely. He noticed the trust, respect, and genuine affection that had developed between them. The boy listened to her guidance with complete focus, and she responded with care and encouragement. The father understood that their relationship was more than just teacher and student. It was a bond built on mutual respect, patience, and shared passion for music. He felt a sense of gratitude and admiration for the maid, recognizing the positive impact she had on his son's life. The boy, sensing the father's presence and growing awareness, felt a mixture of pride and apprehension. He was proud of his progress and the music he could now create, but he was also unsure of how his father would respond to the maid's role in his development. The maid reassured him, telling him that the father's reaction would likely be positive once he understood the care, effort, and dedication involved. She reminded the boy that honesty and openness were important, and that their secret was now becoming a bridge to a deeper understanding within the family. The father decided to engage with his son more directly, asking him to play a piece for him. The boy hesitated at first, feeling nervous, but the maid encouraged him to share his music proudly. He sat at the piano, hands poised over the keys, and began to play. The music was rich, expressive, and full of emotion, reflecting months of careful guidance and personal growth. The father listened intently, moved by the depth and beauty of his son's performance. For the first time, he truly understood the power of music and the impact of the maid's dedication. After the performance, the father expressed his amazement and pride. He praised the boy for his talent, perseverance, and creativity, and he thanked the maid for her patience and commitment. The maid felt a mixture of relief, joy, and fulfillment, knowing that her efforts had been recognized and appreciated. The boy, too, felt proud and validated, understanding that his hard work and dedication had been noticed by the most important person in his life. With the father's awareness and appreciation, the dynamic within the household began to shift. The maid no longer had to hide her lessons, and the boy could continue to explore music openly, supported by both his teacher and his father. The family's bond grew stronger, with music serving as a bridge between them. The boy's confidence soared, and he began to envision a future filled with musical possibilities. The maid continued to guide him, but now with the support and encouragement of the father, creating an environment where creativity, learning, and expression could thrive. As Part 4 concluded, the household had entered a new chapter. The boy's talent was recognized, his confidence had grown, and the maid's dedication had been validated. The father had become more engaged, curious, and supportive, creating a harmonious environment where music and family connection flourished. The secret lessons that had once been hidden in the quiet evenings of the house were now a shared experience, paving the way for even greater achievements and deeper bonds in the chapters yet to come. The day came when the boy was ready to perform a piece he had been working on in secret. The maid had carefully guided him through each note, each rhythm, and each emotion in the composition. It was a piece full of life, reflecting the boy's imagination, his joy, and the countless lessons he had absorbed over months of patient practice. The music had become a part of him, and he was eager to share it, though still slightly nervous about performing for his father. The father, now aware of his son's talent, had requested to hear him play in the music room. The maid prepared the boy, reassuring him that he had practiced and was ready. She reminded him that music was about expression and feeling, not about perfection or judgment. The boy nodded, taking a deep breath and letting the excitement and nervousness mingle. He trusted the maid completely, knowing that she had guided him through every step of this journey. As the father entered the music room, he saw the boy seated at the piano with a look of focus and determination. The room was quiet except for the soft sound of the boy's hands brushing against the keys as he adjusted his position. The maid stood beside him, offering a calm presence, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder. She gave him a gentle nod, signaling that he was ready to begin. The boy took another breath and started playing. The music that filled the room was unlike anything the father had imagined. It was expressive, flowing, and filled with emotion. Each note seemed to tell a story. Each melody carried a sense of wonder and joy. The father listened, captivated, as his son's hands moved confidently over the keys. The boy's face reflected concentration and pride, and the maid watched with quiet satisfaction, knowing that the months of secret practice had culminated in this moment. The boy had worked hard on dynamics, expression, and timing, and it showed in the music. He played with confidence and creativity, improvising at times and weaving in delicate flourishes that demonstrated not just skill but understanding. The maid had nurtured not only his technical abilities but also his emotional connection to music. The father could feel the boy's heart in each note, and he was deeply moved. For the first time, he truly understood the depth of his son's talent and the effort that had gone into developing it. When the boy finished, there was a moment of silence. The father, overwhelmed by emotion, rose to his feet and approached him. He looked at the maid and then at his son, a mixture of astonishment and pride on his face. He praised the boy for his incredible skill, his creativity, and his dedication. He also expressed gratitude to the maid, acknowledging her patience, care, and guidance. It was a moment of recognition and validation for both the boy and the maid, a turning point in their journey. The boy, hearing his father's words, felt a surge of confidence and pride. He had worked tirelessly in secret, and now his talent was recognized and appreciated. The maid smiled, her heart full of joy, knowing that the boy's efforts had paid off, and that their secret had transformed into a shared achievement. The father's support added a new layer of encouragement, reinforcing the value of the lessons and the bond between them. From that day on, the atmosphere in the house changed. The music room, once a private sanctuary, became a place of shared joy and exploration. The father encouraged his son to continue practicing, offering support and interest in his progress. The maid continued to guide him, but now with the father's understanding and encouragement. The boy thrived, exploring more complex compositions and developing his own unique style. The lessons were no longer hidden. They had become a collaborative experience that enriched the entire household. The father also began to take a more active role in his son's musical education. He would sit and listen attentively, sometimes asking questions about techniques or compositions. He was amazed by the boy's ability to learn by ear, to interpret music with emotion, and to express himself through sound. The maid encouraged this involvement, recognizing that the father's support would further strengthen the boy's confidence and abilities. As the boy continued to grow as a musician, he also developed a deeper understanding of himself and the world around him. Music had become a lens through which he experienced emotions, stories, and relationships. The maid had provided him not only with technical skills but also with the confidence to explore, experiment, and express himself. The father's recognition added validation and encouragement, helping the boy understand the value of his efforts and the importance of dedication. The boy's talent soon extended beyond the walls of the house. He began to play for friends, relatives, and even small gatherings organized by the father. Each performance was met with admiration and praise, reinforcing his love for music and his desire to continue learning. The maid remained a guiding presence, offering gentle advice and support, ensuring that the boy maintained his confidence and joy while developing his skills. The father's pride and involvement further motivated the boy, creating a nurturing environment that encouraged growth and creativity. The maid also continued to teach the boy about composition and improvisation. She introduced him to different musical styles, encouraged experimentation with rhythm and melody, and helped him develop his own unique voice. The boy's creativity flourished, and he began to compose original pieces that reflected his imagination, emotions, and experiences. The father listened to these compositions with amazement, recognizing the depth and talent his son had cultivated under the maid's guidance. One afternoon, the boy shared a new composition with the maid and his father. He explained the story behind the music, describing the emotions he wanted to convey and the images he had imagined while composing. The maid listened attentively, offering gentle feedback and encouragement, while the father expressed admiration and pride. The boy realized that his music could communicate feelings and stories in ways that words could not, and he felt a deep sense of accomplishment and purpose. The bond between the maid, the boy, and the father strengthened through these shared musical experiences. The maid's dedication and guidance, combined with the father's support and encouragement, created a nurturing environment where the boy could thrive. Music became a language that connected them, bridging gaps and fostering understanding, trust, and love. The boy's confidence, creativity, and emotional expression flourished, transforming not only his own life but also the atmosphere of the household. As Part 5 concluded, the boy had achieved a level of skill and confidence that was extraordinary. The maid's patient guidance and the father's growing support had created a harmonious environment that nurtured talent, creativity, and emotional growth. The secret lessons, once hidden in the quiet evenings of the house, had blossomed into a shared journey of discovery, pride, and accomplishment. The boy's music was no longer just a private joy. It was a bridge between teacher, student, and parent, transforming the household and leaving a lasting impression on everyone involved. With the boy's talent now fully recognized, life in the household had changed in the most remarkable way. The music room was no longer a hidden sanctuary, but a place of shared joy and exploration. The father often joined the boy and the maid in their sessions, sometimes simply listening, other times offering encouragement and asking questions about compositions and technique. The boy's confidence soared as he felt the support of both his mentor and his parent, and he began to explore music in ways he had never imagined. The maid continued her role as teacher and guide, but now she also shared in the father's pride and involvement. She helped the boy develop not only technical skill but also creativity, imagination, and emotional expression. They worked together on longer compositions, improvisation, and even small performances within the house. The boy thrived in this nurturing environment, growing not only as a musician but also as a thoughtful and confident young person. Word of the boy's talent gradually spread to close family and friends. Small gatherings were held in the music room, where the boy would play for a few trusted listeners. The maid ensured that the boy remained comfortable and confident during these sessions, guiding him gently when needed. Each performance was met with admiration and encouragement, reinforcing the boy's love for music and his desire to continue learning. The father, proud and amazed, would watch as his son's abilities flourished, grateful for the maid's patience and dedication. One day, the father suggested that the boy should perform at a small local recital, giving him the opportunity to share his music with a wider audience. The boy felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness, but the maid reassured him. She reminded him that music was about expression and joy, not perfection, and that he should play with confidence and pride. The father added his support, promising that no matter what happened, they were proud of him. Together, they prepared for the performance, practicing daily and fine-tuning each piece. The day of the recital arrived, and the boy was ready. He stepped onto the stage, the lights shining softly on him, and felt a sense of calm and focus he had never experienced before. The maid had guided him through the final preparations, and the father's presence in the audience gave him strength. As his fingers touched the keys, the music flowed effortlessly, expressing stories, emotions, and dreams. The audience listened in awe, captivated by the beauty and depth of the performance. The boy's talent, nurtured in secrecy and patience, had finally been revealed to the world. After the recital, the boy was met with praise, applause, and admiration. People marveled at his ability to play with such skill and expression, and many were moved by the emotional depth of his music. The father embraced his son, filled with pride and joy, and thanked the maid for her unwavering dedication. The boy felt a profound sense of accomplishment, realizing that his months of practice, patience, and guidance had led to this unforgettable moment. The success of the recital opened new opportunities for the boy. The father arranged for music teachers, private lessons, and access to instruments and resources that would further develop his talent. The maid remained by his side, continuing to guide him with patience and care. Together, they nurtured his skills, encouraged his creativity, and ensured that music remained a source of joy and personal growth. The boy's confidence, emotional expression, and technical ability continued to grow, shaping him into a young musician ready to explore the world. Over time, the boy began to compose original pieces that reflected his imagination and emotions. He experimented with melody, rhythm, and harmony, creating music that was uniquely his own. The maid guided him through these creative explorations, offering advice and encouragement while allowing him the freedom to express himself. The father listened with amazement, recognizing the depth of talent and dedication that had been nurtured through months of secret lessons and guidance. The household, once quiet and ordinary, was now filled with music, laughter, and collaboration. The boy's talent brought joy not only to himself but to those around him. The maid and the father shared a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that their combined efforts had unlocked a gift that had transformed the boy's life. Music became a bridge that connected them all, strengthening bonds and creating shared experiences that would last a lifetime. As the boy continued to grow, his passion for music became a central part of his identity. He learned to express emotions, tell stories, and communicate ideas through his compositions. The maid guided him with patience, ensuring that he remained grounded and focused, while the father provided support, encouragement, and opportunities for growth. Together, they created an environment where talent, creativity, and emotional expression could thrive. The journey that began with secret lessons had now reached a stage of open celebration. The boy's talent, once hidden from view, was recognized and appreciated by all who knew him. The maid's dedication and guidance, combined with the father's support, had created a nurturing and inspiring environment. The boy had grown not only as a musician but also as a confident, expressive, and thoughtful young person, ready to explore new possibilities and share his gift with the world. As Part 6 concluded, the boy's story had come full circle. What began as a quiet, hidden journey of discovery had blossomed into a life filled with music, confidence, and connection. The maid's patience and care had nurtured a talent that transformed a boy's world, while the father's recognition and support had opened doors to new opportunities. Together, they had created a story of trust, dedication, and the power of belief in one another, leaving a lasting impact on the boy's life and the lives of those around him. The boy's music, once secret, now resonated freely, carrying with it the joy, love, and hard work that had shaped him into the remarkable young musician he had become.